Well, hello there. Hope everything's going good with you, and welcome to episode 15 of Copper Peak, the Eagle's Nest, the audio retelling of Charlie Supersinski's great book, Soaring with the Eagles, the Copper Peak story. And this is the episode where we're going to kind of step away from all of the tournaments year by year and who jumped the longest and who had the record for the hill and that kind of thing, and just talk about Copper Peak, how it all came about, and how they kept the dream alive. It all started with a dream to build a hill larger than any other ski jumping hill in the world. When the Gogebic Range Ski Club was formed in 1935, they chose a new site northeast of Ironwood. The hill would be competitive with ski jumping hills found throughout the Midwest. From that site, Wolverine Hill, members of the club could look some 10 miles to the north to what was known at that time as Chippewa Hill, a copper-bearing outcrop nearly 360 feet high. This hill, located in the Black River Valley, was sufficiently large to accommodate a ski jump in which leaps in excess of 400 feet were possible. The club settled for the Wolverine Hill site as a second choice, but the dream had its genesis some 35 years before Copper Peak became reality in 1970. The Copper Peak story is a unique saga of how a small rural community evolved into a powerhouse of ski jumping and found the wherewithal to lay claim to the world's ski jumping title. This subsequently led to the building of the world's largest ski jumping, ski flying structure at Copper Peak. The dream, to fly farther on a pair of skis than anyone else in the world, was larger than any one individual, larger than any one community. It is a story of dedication and hard work, persistence and commitment by those who believed in the sport. It is a uniquely human experience fraught with success and failure, with challenges and opportunities. It is but one story of mankind's desire to excel, to run faster, to jump higher, to climb the highest mountain, to soar like an eagle. It is a testimonial to all those who dream big, that great things can happen even under the most difficult conditions. The building of Copper Peak was the culmination of 35 years of commitment by a group of dedicated ski jumpers, most of whom were the sons of iron ore miners. What is more amazing is that it was accomplished at a time when the local economy was collapsing due to the closing of the mining industry. Okay, so we're talking about a time period of 1935 to 1969 when they were nurturing the dream of Copper Peak. Ironwood had emerged as a powerhouse in ski jumping, but then we ran into World War I and World War II, and by the time we got to the time period of the war years, 1943 to 1945, everything had pretty much come to a standstill because of the war. After the war, the communities in the Midwest were trying to make a recovery, and returning veterans in 1945 were anxious to return life to some degree of normalcy. They enrolled in great numbers at Ironwood Junior College, benefiting from the GI Bill of Rights. Others found their way into the job market. Similarly, those veterans close to the ski jumping world wanted to get back to their favorite sport. Shortly after VJ Day in August of 1944, former members of the Gogebic Range Ski Club held their first organizational meeting in 1945. Ski jumping will be revived as a major sport on the Gogebic Range during the coming winter. It was decided by the Gogebic Range Ski Club at its first post-war meeting at the Memorial Building. The club voted to hold its annual invitational tournament at Wolverine Hill in February. Shortly after the first post-World War II Wolverine meet, the Gogebic Range Ski Club unveiled its plans for a new and larger hill. The headlines and story of the Daily Globe in March of 1946 talked about the ski club was hoping to build a large new slide for 400-foot leaps. Tentative plans for a proposed new ski slide on which jumps of up to a maximum of 400 feet would be feasible if was revealed today by the Gogebic Range Ski Club. In releasing a general outline of the proposed plans, it was emphasized that they were all tentative and contingent on availability of the site and many other factors. The decision to release the general details was reached when it became apparent that the ski jumpers' grapevine throughout the Midwest was beginning to buzz with sensational rumors of a proposed giant slide. The site which the ski club hopes to acquire is on Mount Chippewa, also known as Copper Peak, on the scenic Black River Parkway, 12 miles northeast of Ironwood and 9 miles northwest of Bessemer. The club has directed an inquiry to the owners of the property to learn whether the proposed site is available for purchase or long-term lease. Should the site be available, it was pointed out there also would be the question of relocating the Black River Road, a matter which would have to be decided by the county. These are two of the major ifs still surrounding the plans. A third if is the question of financing the project. Surveys of the proposed site have been made and contour maps prepared, and these with other details have been submitted to the engineering committee of the Central U.S. Ski Association for their approval. To make an announcement of this magnitude indicated that the club had done its homework. In 1940, the club had obtained a lease on the proposed site at Chippewa Hill. After the last tournament in 1942, when the club was strapped financially due to low attendance, it had moved to make William L. Johnson, then Ironwood city manager, an honorary member of the club. Bill, along with Joe Walusewicz, Mel Matson, and Osmo Koski of the city's engineering department, did a lot of groundwork for the Copper Peak project during the WPA days of the late 1930s and early 1940s. That effort continued through World War II. City engineer Mel Matson recalled some work had been done on Chippewa Hill. One bitter, stormy Sunday afternoon, Matson dragged Bill Johnson to Chippewa Hill to show him what he believed to be wind patterns favorable to ski flying. They went there in a blinding snowstorm. After some subsequent visits to the hill, the city manager was to ask the city engineer, Osmo Koski, to make a survey of the hill. And that was done, and a few years later, the blown-up copies were turned over to the Gogebic Ski Club officials. The proposed Copper Peak project was now out front of the public, and the burning question remained: will the club find the necessary support within the community to undertake this huge project? The answer would be a resounding yes, but it would take some 23 years of hard work and dedication to accomplish this goal. The dream, born in the mid-30s, would take half a lifetime to become reality in 1970. What was the genesis of Copper Peak? Well, it would take many years later that details of the origins of Copper Peak would emerge. In an interview conducted by Margaret Lever, a staff writer of the Daily Globe, and reported in 1991, Earl Minkin reflects on the early days when Copper Peak was only a concept. Minkin sat on the first Gogebic Range Ski Corporation, organized in 1935. The Copper Peak site was first investigated as a possible site in January of 1935 by Minkin and Joe Marine, while Wolverine was still a top priority. Having a big jump in mind, Minkin said, we investigated many sites for the possibility of building a jumping hill. Upon inspection of Chippewa Hill, now Copper Peak, Minkin said, it was very, very impressive with its size. This was the beginning of Copper Peak, as many obstacles such as county roads, land ownership, and costs led the club elsewhere in search of the Wolverine site. to the current North Ironwood location. A committee was appointed in 1939-40 to continue investigation into Copper Peak, but the development of the Wolverine ski hill was the corporation's top priority at that time. Copper Peak was still in the dream stage. Minkin was instrumental in the development of Copper Peak, and in 1939-40, he assumed the duties of chairman of the committee appointed to investigate the possibility of developing Copper Peak. The committee, Minkin recalls, was made up of young active ski jumpers who had hopes of putting a jump on Copper Peak so we could use it in our time. Little did I realize that it would come 29 to 30 years later, and it was one long, arduous project. We had a job on our hands. In fact, many felt it would never become a reality. Minkin gave much credit for Copper Peak's development to the original 9-man board of the corporation. These people stuck with the project, including Sam Davey, Nick Hakela, Edwin Lintonen, Leo Kuklinski, Tony Osterman, Wayne O'Weemery, Ted Zabriskie, William L. Johnson, and, of course, Earl Minkin. At times, Minkin recalls, the interest slacked off and then picked up again as progress of some nature was made. The Copper Peak project and its developers underwent many conflicts before the ski flying theory was finally grasped. With the seed planted, plans for Copper Peak continued over the years. The original drawings for Copper Peak were done by Collins Engineers of Milwaukee, and the final plans by Lauren A. Larson Engineers, Duluth, Minkin said. The first engineering studies he added were done in 1941 to 1945 by Edwin Croce Engineering. The first engineering studies he added were done in 1941 to 45 by Edmund Couch Engineering. Minkin noted that Couch was a personal friend of his and also chairman of the Central U.S. Ski Association Engineering Committee. Minkin said, as there were no ski flying hills in the world, once Mr. Couch was given a hill profile, he did extensive engineering on the profile on his own, as there were no engineering tables for hills of that size. About $70,000 was generated by the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation through a local fund drive. This included $200 to $400 set aside each year put into the Copper Peak Fund, and with all planning and engineering fees expended by the club, according to Minkin. 1946 to 1955 showed 10 years of planning and selling Copper Peak. The Gogebic Range Ski Club had a busy agenda. In addition to the Copper Peak project, the club sponsored tournaments at Wolverine Hill, financed skiers to competitions throughout the Midwest, supported a junior jumping program, and encouraged support of recreational skiing. The tasks at hand were, of themselves, very challenging and required a great deal of time and effort. A great deal of work needed to be done in order for a Copper Peak project to take hold. A brief summary of the tasks included purchase of the property, some 400 acres at the Chippewa Hills site, rerouting by the county of Black River Road around the west side of the hill, a distance of 2.2 miles, clearing of some 15 acres of land for parking lots, hiring of a structural engineering firm to design the slide according to the specifications of the USA Central Division and the International Ski Federation, otherwise known as FIS, design and construction of the administrative building, judges' stand, and chairlift. The most challenging task, however, was to obtain the necessary support from the community to finance the project. In hindsight, the task seemed overwhelming. On the positive side, members of the Gogebic Range Ski Club were a tenacious and committed group of individuals with a big dream. In order to sell the Copper Peak project locally, Nick Hakela and Sam Davey of the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation appeared 1 week after the big announcement and outlined plans before the Ironwood Kiwanis Club. Excerpts from that presentation are highlighted as follows. Complete plans have been drawn for a slide that would be 532 feet in length from the top of a 162-foot tower and with a landing making possible jumps of more than 400 feet. Arrangements are now underway to lease the necessary surface rights for erection of the tower for the landing as well as parking areas for spectators. The Kiwanis Club appointed W. Burns, chairman of the three-man committee, to work with the ski club. Other members will be Theodore Roy, chief engineer of the Oliver Iron Mining Company, and William L. Johnson, city manager. The club, which is affiliated with the Mount Zion Ski Club, the Junior College Ski Club, and the Junior Jumping Club as a member of both Central and National Ski Association, and points out that Copper Peak would be centrally located for all parts of this area and would make it possible for records to be established here to break the 351-foot world jump in Europe. Both Hakela and Davy, who have participated in important ski tourneys in this country, claim that once the hill is built, that the world's record can again be brought back to the Gogebic Range without fear of either artificial or mountain slides ever capturing it again. It didn't take long before the ski jumping community in the Midwest responded to the newly proposed ski jump at Copper Peak, that is, Chippewa Hill. The size of the proposed hill captured the imagination of the public as well. Well, let's talk a little bit about ski hill design. I think it's safe to say that every community had their own ski jumping facility, and they designed their slides to their own specifications. The characteristics of flight depended primarily on the angle of the takeoff, in other words, the last spot of the scaffold where the skier took off. As noted, the angle of the takeoff could range from a few degrees down to level to a slight upward angle. To gain more distance, a kicker might be added to the takeoff, which effectively increased the angle to level or provided as an actual upshoot to give the jumper greater height over the knoll. Did I just use some terms that we're not familiar with? Maybe it's time to go and look back at terminology of a ski jumping hill, okay? We'll look online here to the Westby, Wisconsin Snowflake Ski Club, and they talk about, on their website, the jumping hill. Let's start with the start. Okay, all ski jumpers have different starting positions that are located at the top of the jump. All modern ski jumps have bar starts. The jumper will sit on one of these bars before he or she goes down the in-run prior to competition. Okay, and the in-run, what's that? This is the first part of the ski jump. We're talking about the scaffold now. The in-run starts at the top of the bar and ends at the takeoff. The jumper will get into his or her in-run position in this part of the jump to gain speed and get ready for the takeoff. What is the takeoff? The part of the jump is located at the end of the in-run and is the place where the jumper enters the air, and the height of the takeoff does not equate to the size of the jump. The takeoff ends where the landing hill begins. And what is that word we just said, the knoll? The knoll is the first part of the landing hill and starts right underneath the takeoff. The knoll runs from the bottom of the takeoff and continually curves down the P-point or blue line. Ski jumpers try not to land on the knoll. Now let's get back to our episode. Many of the photos taken in the 1920s and 1940s show skiers in flight anywhere from 15 to 30 feet or more above the knoll. Torgo Tokol's description of being 70 feet in flight above the knoll, by today's standards, it's incomprehensible. To the fans viewing from the outrun, a great deal of height in flight over the knoll meant a long distance would surely result. One could not be faint of heart to be a ski jumper during this period of time. One had to have an extremely strong pair of legs to withstand the shock of landing from such a height. It was only in the mid to late 1970s that the FIS and others in the ski jumping community began to recognize that hanging the takeoff down would give flights which more closely followed the profile of the hill. The angle of the takeoff on today's modern hills is in the vicinity of 11 degrees downward, and skiers in flight are never more than 10 to 12 feet above the knoll. The result is a safer hill, as skiers can easily break out of their flight if in trouble and come into a safe landing on the hill. In 1952, Earl Minkin continued his work at promoting the idea of a big ski flying hill. The greatest ski hill in the world, ideally suited for smashing existing records in the new sport of ski flying, could be developed at Mount Chippewa, Copper Peak, on the Black River Road, the Ironwood Chamber of Commerce was told last night. Among the facts presented by Earl Minkin, president of the Gogebic Range Ski Corporation and head of the special Mount Chippewa Development Committee, were these. Present world records of more than 400 feet could be exceeded in perfect safety at Mount Chippewa. A slide such as contemplated by the ski club could be erected and the area developed for approximately $100,000. This is 1952. Crowds of up to 50,000 persons would be attracted by ski flying, promising leaps of more than 400 feet. Distance jumping meets would be held over a period of 5 to 10 days, attracting 100,000 persons for a meet. The ski club needs and welcomes the cooperation of other organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce of Ironwood and other range cities. The proposed hill development would be a year-round tourist attraction, especially when combined with a western access road to the Porcupines, and would be of benefit to the entire western end of the Upper Peninsula. World records for ski jumping can be set and held on the proposed hill. Prevailing winds and other conditions are ideal at Mount Chippewa. The site is perfect for spectator comfort as the underhill and outrun area are sheltered from wind. The GRSC has been studying the project, assembling engineering data, and obtaining land leases since 1946. Mr. Minkin displayed charts and maps to illustrate his review of the potentialities of the proposed ski hill. His talk was greeted with enthusiasm, and Earl Minkin, Copper Peak Project Coordinator, continued his promotional efforts, appearing before the Gogebic County Board of Supervisors. The Conservation Committee of the Gogebic County Board of Supervisors pledged cooperation to the ski club in seeking to bring about the realization of the project. The public relations campaign by the Gogebic Range Ski Club continued, with the economic benefits of the area being extolled to all of the service clubs in the area: the Kiwanis Club, the Rotary, the Lions Club, the county boards, the city commissions, every committee that there might be involved with any influence was contacted and told about the plans to build this beautiful Copper Peak Hill. That about does it for this episode of The Eagle's Nest, and keeping the dream alive is not an easy job no matter what you're doing. Please join us next time and we'll talk more about the big factor in getting something done, and that's the financial side of things. As you know, the Gogebic Range Ski Club and ski jumping in America is mostly a club-supported activity and hasn't in the past been able to get any funding from the usual government resources. That might change, so why don't you join us next time and we'll talk about that, okay? This is your narrator, Dan McMahon, saying thanks for listening and reminding you that Charlie's book, Soaring with the Eagles, The Copper Peak Story, is available at the downtown depot location for the Ironwood Chamber of Commerce and Historical Society, and also at the downtown art place in downtown Ironwood. We're also on YouTube, and you can go there by searching on your search engine for Copper Peak Eagle's Nest, or you can visit our streaming site by using search engines like Google and Yahoo, and search Copper Peak, and the episodes start on the half hour. We're also on Copper Peak Radio, 102.1 FM at 6:08 a.m. and p.m. and 11:08 a.m. and p.m. if you're in the area. Maybe the easiest way is to go to YouTube, and on your smart TV or on your computer or even on your phone, and we open up the YouTube app and just look for Copper Peak Eagle's Nest, and the episodes are numbered, and there's a lot of really good pictures that go along with the narrative, and take you back in time and shows you all the hard work that was done. For now, take it easy, and we'll see you next time on the Eagle's Nest.